How do you enliven a landscape painting with bold color tones? It usually starts with letting go of the literal color and instead responding emotionally to the scene. Think of color as mood. Use high chroma accents to lead the eye and push saturation where you feel energy and not just simply where you see it. Let me show you how. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been exploring how to simplify a landscape, how to see it not as a tangle of trees and rocks and clouds, I guess, but as big shapes of light and dark. I've done a number of videos on here that deals with this concept of design and the notan design, namely, which helps us to learn the bones of the image, if you want, the value, structure, which holds everything essentially together. So today we're adding something new to the mix, and that's color. We're using the same principles of design from the last couple weeks of the landscape works that we've covered, but we're going to add color in a bit of a twist. I've done this a number of different times with the portraitures or the figurative work that I've put out here, but not the kind of color you find in a coloring book, not grass green or sky blue kind. We're going through the process here. I am doing a demo, but I'm not so much focusing on every little stroke of this particular painting. It is a bit shorter in that regard, but I want to more focus on the color and how we can use color to accentuate our landscapes as you can your portraits, as you can your still lifes, if that's what you're doing. So the idea for this week was to incorporate the same concepts we dealt with last week and the week before with regards to the design, where the pieces were very, I don't want to say 2D, but they weren't as sculpted as this week's video was, and use some of those same concepts to come up with a design or create a more representational scene, which is still built on strong notan values and bold shapes. But now we're letting those abstract foundations grow into something more recognizable. As you can see, this particular birch tree in the front, and to some extent the background forest and sunset. Firstly, before I get into the core idea of this video, I just want to briefly talk about my materials and techniques. So this video and this particular painting is being done with oils, as the title indicates. It's on a mylar sheet. What I've done differently this week, you may notice, is that I've applied an underpainting, an acrylic, a very, very warm underpainting that's kind of extended beyond the range of the painting on the right, as I'm touching it right there. The reason for that is I'm testing the color values before I'm applying it on my painting on the left, because that is the absolute best way to tell if you've got the right color. I'm mixing it on a palette in front of me, I'm applying the paint, but every now and again I'm touching that little strip, the yellow strip on the right, just to gauge values. But as I paint along, I don't do that as much because I'm gauging it against the previous colors that I've already put down. So as I said, this particular piece is painted on a mylar sheet, frosted mylar sheet. I've done a number of demos here on YouTube with that. If you are interested in learning more about using mylar, I've covered it extensively, but I'll put a link to a blog post that I've written a number of years ago in that regard. This type of representational landscape work isn't really indicative of my current landscape painting practices. Now, I don't paint landscapes as much as I used to. I have a lot of commission work, which is mostly figurative, but when I do get a chance to paint them, I lean more into abstraction, intuition, and expression, certainly for the beginning stages of the work, as opposed to this approach where I'm working off of a couple reference photos and I'm trying to get color values right from the get-go to indicate something more representational. So the process for me nowadays is more abstract to abstract, and then try to get something that resembles realism out of that, as opposed to this approach, which is I construct, and then deconstruct later on with shapes, with edges, and of course color, which is the main subject of this demonstration. But I wanted to put this out there as a kind of a stepping stone, especially for everybody who are just beginning stages of their journey, or who are looking to build a stronger foundation in their visual thinking. It's educational, not in the sense of teaching a formula, but in offering a way to see, to understand how structure, value, and bold color can work together, even in this, I guess, traditional framework. It's also about honoring the fact that many artists go through this. I don't know what it is about this, but many artists move through representational work before they break it apart. And there's real value in these phases, this journey, these disciplines, clarity, and a kind of visual, grammar, I guess, that can support more experimentation down the road. So on to color. I'm using a broken color approach here, much like most all of my videos that I've put out here already. If you're familiar with my content, I have a knack to using a whole sorts of different mark making tools. For this particular demonstration, I'm mostly relying on good old-fashioned brushes, but as you may notice here and there throughout this video, I'm using my squeegee brushes as well. If you're new to my channel, I encourage you to explore some of the other videos, as I really do experiment with a whole lot of tools, whether they're squeegees or brayers or some sort of scrapers. I'm known to use the right tool for the right mark. So for this particular video, there's not much, as I said, I'm using brushes as I am to lay down that snow or indication of snow in the front. But as I said, broken color is my approach that I basically use for all of my work. Essentially what that is just layering small touches of paint side by side instead of blending everything smooth. So it allows you to visually blend a scene. From a distance it's fully blended, but up close you can see all sorts of different, what I call notes of color. It's a way of letting the colors breathe, essentially letting the eye do the mixing as opposed to your brush. Now I didn't do that for this whole painting, meaning that I didn't leave all the small little cues unblended. For the trunk in the front I did some blending, as I am doing as well with that underpainting, the dark underpainting for the forest with that 2-inch squeegee brush I talked about. But there's a certain movement in broken color, a kind of vibration that gives the surface life and texture sometimes as well, depending on if you're using a medium. For this particular demo I did not. And especially if you're doing it alla prima. This particular piece was done over a 2-day period. But the real reason I'm putting this video out, and the main reason really, is to talk about high chroma accents, those bold, unexpected bursts of pure color that bring the whole painting to life. So as you can see here at this stage, I'm bringing this painting to quote-unquote representational completion based on the reference photos I am working off of. So I've applied that underpainting, which is darker. I'm now applying some of the lighter tones in those background trees, as well as the openings, the natural openings in the trees. You can kind of see in this close-up image the broken color I'd spoken about, both in the background that I'm applying cues on there right now, and the trees as well I just talked about. So individual strokes of color, direct color applications that are put there that sort of communicate with one another, direct sort of adjacent colors, as well as the whole painting. In this painting I've kept the overall palette pretty restrained. earthy neutrals, grays, soft transitions as I talked about, but then let moments of pure saturation of color really sing, like that swipe of teal or a swipe of cadmium orange here and there. It's this little flick of color note. It's less about describing reality really and more about evoking a sensation. This is somewhat in the unknown territory sphere. This is obviously not off of any photo. This is entirely my own. And I'm introducing these high chroma accents to add life really to that medium part or the dark part of this painting. I felt that it was needed. I have to be honest, I wasn't certain I was going to do that. A lot of times when you do this or when you adhere to this process based painting style where you let the process dictate where it wants to take you, you never know where a certain painting will go and what you may be inclined to do. Now, I had a general idea that I wanted to introduce these high chroma accents, but you never know. So these accents essentially invite you to pause, to notice them and to feel something just a bit more deeply. The scene almost becomes a backdrop for the feeling, for these little small cues of high chroma color. It's kind of like less about describing reality, more about evoking an emotion of sorts. This kind of color works perfectly with notan-based design. We talked about in the last couple of videos. The structure is still doing its job, holding everything together, but now color gets to kind of dance on top of it. So even though this is more of a representational landscape, the spirit of the work remains intuitive, responsive, and grounded in emotional language of paint. That paint that you can see right here as we're zooming in, the teals, the oranges, the cad yellows, and of course the underlying color cues that we talked about that indicate form of the scene itself. This week we painted representationally and then abstracted it, starting from something familiar and then letting it loosen. Next week we flip that process. I'll begin with pure abstraction, marks, texture, and instinct, and then slowly pull out forms from that chaos. It's the reverse approach, and I'm very excited to share it with you. I will see you next week for another video lesson. Thank you. Bye-bye.